Hope you enjoy being homeless. My father didn't raise his voice. He just stood there on the porch, phone in his hand, like this was something worth recording. The yard went quiet, not peaceful. The kind of quiet that tightens your chest, because everyone knows something just crossed a line. My mother didn't stop him. My sister smiled. And I stood there, looking at my life scattered across the lawn like trash, and felt it. Not anger. Clarity. Because that moment didn't come out of nowhere. What they didn't know, what none of them had bothered to understand, was that I wasn't the burden they thought I was. I was the one holding everything together. And the second I walked away, everything they called normal was going to fall apart. But to understand how it got to that night, you have to go back. I'm Emily Carter. I'm 29. And the night my father threw me out, I had just finished a 12-hour shift, trying to keep a burned golden retriever alive. I still smelled like antiseptic and wet fur when I pulled into the driveway. At first, I thought I had the wrong house. My duffel bag was split open across the lawn. My scrubs tangled in the grass. One sleeve caught on a broken lamp. My winter coat lay half buried in my mother's flower bed, like something discarded, forgotten. Then I saw the box of my childhood photos, dumped upside down, frames cracked, glass glittering under the porch light. And then I saw him. My father stood there, on the front step, holding his phone up, recording. Not yelling, not angry, calm, controlled. Like this was planned. Like humiliating his daughter was a point he needed to prove. Shh, in my seat. My mother stood behind him, arms folded tight. Her face set in that quiet, familiar agreement. My sister leaned against the railing, smirking, nudging one of my storage bins, until a stack of certificates slid off and scattered into the street. An born hussy. You're 29, my father said, loud enough for the neighbors. You've been draining this family dry. I want you out. Tonight. I remember noticing everything at once. The couple across the street, pretending not to stare. A pickup idling somewhere nearby. The porch light casting hard shadows across his face. And that's when something inside me didn't break. It went cold. I looked straight into his phone, into the lens he thought would capture my shame, and I smiled. Have you ever been called a burden by the people who raised you? Not in a fight, not in anger, but like it was a fact, like it had always been true. I didn't cry, I didn't argue. I didn't give them the scene they were waiting for. I walked onto that lawn, picked up every piece of my life they had thrown away, and packed it back into my car. Slow, steady, deliberate. Then I walked up to them. Close enough. My father had to lower his phone. And I said quietly, I hope you all sleep well tonight, because one day you won't sleep at all. And I meant it. The strangest part, I didn't feel angry. Not the kind that makes you shout or slam doors. It was quieter than that. Cleaner. Like a switch had flipped, somewhere deep inside me. As I turned away from the porch, I could feel all three of them watching, waiting for me to break, to beg, to become someone they recognized. But that version of me was already gone. I moved across the lawn with steady hands, picking up what was left of my life piece by piece, my scrubs damp from the grass. My fingers stung from a shard of glass. But I didn't rush. I folded what I could, packed what I could save, and left the rest without a second glance. At some point, I realized something. My phone was still recording in my pocket. I hadn't meant to capture it. The yelling, my sister's laugh, my mother's voice saying, just let her go, Michael. And Anna, it was dance. But when I noticed, I didn't stop it. I let it run. Because families like mine rewrite history fast. By morning, it becomes a misunderstanding. By next week, I'd be dramatic. By Christmas, I'd be the daughter who walked out over nothing. That's how ani I see, find. But not this time. I wasn't going to forget what really happened. I closed the trunk, took one last look at the house I grew up in, and got into my car. No tears, no hesitation, no looking back. I didn't look back. And that was the first real decision I made that night. Not where to go, not what to take, that I was done. I drove about 15 minutes, 3 exits down the highway, until the neighborhood disappeared in my rearview mirror. And all that was left was the steady hum of tires on asphalt. I pulled into the back of a 24-hour gas station, parked under a flickering light, and just sat there, engine running. Not crying, not shaking. Just still. That's when I noticed the recording. My phone had captured everything. The words, the tone. The way my sister laughed like it was entertainment. The way my mother didn't stop it. I hit play, then played it again, and again. Not to relive it, but to hear it clearly. So I could never soften it later. Never rewrite it into something less than what it was. And I knew exactly how this would go if I let time pass. They'd call it a misunderstanding, say I was emotional. That I took it the wrong way, that I overreacted. But the recording didn't overreact. So I saved it, backed it up. Took screenshots of every message flooding in. My father demanding to know where I was. My mother calling me unstable. My sister texting. Good luck paying for your own life. Mom, I made a folder on my phone and named it when they start lying. Oh, you guys. That night, I checked into a cheap extended stay motel off the interstate. $219 for the week, paid in cash. The bathroom light flickered. The mattress dipped in the middle. The air smelled faintly like old carpet and burnt coffee. It wasn't home, but it was mine. Somewhere between the hum of the vending machine and the silence of that small rented room, I made a decision, bigger than anything on that lawn. I wasn't going back. And once that settled in, something else surfaced. Not fear, not even relief. Clarity. It came in small, ordinary moments. The next morning, I woke to a semi-truck downshifting on the interstate. No one banging on my door. No one complaining I came home late. No one keeping score of how much hot water I used. I stood under the weak stream, counting out of habit. 30, 45, 60. Then I stopped. There was no one to answer to. And that's when the first crack appeared. In the story I'd been told my whole life. If I was such a burden, why did everything feel lighter without them? By the third day, the messages changed. They weren't about me anymore. Not really. My father didn't ask because he missed me. He wanted to know where the car title paperwork was. My mother asked if I'd moved anything important. My sister texted, "Do you still have the login for the utilities?" No, are you okay? No, where are you sleeping? Just inconvenience. Yes, for Yashis. I sat on the edge of that sagging mattress, staring at my phone, and something in me shifted. So cleanly, it almost felt mechanical. I wasn't the problem. I was the system. I was the one refilling prescriptions when my mom forgot. The one paying half the groceries when her card declined. The one scheduling vet appointments, tracking bills, staying home for deliveries, fixing the Wi-Fi, handling the quiet, constant work. That kept a household running. Not because I was asked politely, because if I didn't, things fell apart. And somehow, that would still be my fault. They didn't throw me out because I was useless. They threw me out because I had stopped being useful the way they expected. That realization didn't hit like a wave. It settled like weight. Heavy, undeniable, impossible to ignore. And once it was there, everything started to make sense. Every time they called me selfish for buying something for myself, every time my father said I lacked direction, while I worked 12-hour shifts, every time my sister rolled her eyes, while I covered responsibilities she never noticed. It wasn't confusion. It was control. And the moment I stepped out of that system, the moment I stopped absorbing what they wouldn't carry, the whole structure began to crack. Not because I broke it, because I was the thing holding it together. I remember sitting in the motel lobby that afternoon, a paper cup of burnt coffee in my hands, watching people come and go like any ordinary Tuesday. And for the first time in years, I asked myself something I had never said out loud. What if leaving wasn't the failure? What if staying had been? Because if a place only works when you're exhausted, overextended, and constantly shrinking yourself to keep the peace, is that really a home? Or is it just a system that depends on you never stepping out of line? I finished the coffee, set the cup down, and made a quiet promise to myself. I wasn't going to shrink anymore. And once I said that, even just to myself, everything that came next felt different. Not easier, but clearer. By the end of that week, I picked up 2 extra overnight shifts at the animal hospital. 12 hours turned into 14. 14 into whatever it needed to be. The work didn't scare me. It made sense. A German shepherd hit by a car at 2 a.m., a terrier in respiratory distress, a golden retriever bleeding out on the table. You don't second guess in those moments. You move, you act, you hold things together. Starm as the anhani. Funny, I'd been doing that for years. Only now I was doing it somewhere that saw it. Dr. Whitmore noticed first. She always did. At the end of one shift, around 6:30 a.m., she leaned against the counter watching me finish a chart. Emily, you're already doing the work of someone in our advanced surgical track. Why haven't you applied? I almost gave her the same answer I'd told myself for years. Bad timing, too much going on, not ready yet. But then I paused, because for the first time, none of those excuses belonged to me anymore. I don't know, I said. She held my gaze for a second, then nodded. Then maybe it's finally time you find out. That stayed with me. Later that afternoon, I met Jason at a diner just off the freeway. Vinyl booths, burnt coffee, the kind of place where nobody asks questions. He didn't offer sympathy. He slid a yellow legal pad across the table. Housing, certification, boundaries. That's it, he said. That's your life right now. Your ass harsti. And for once, it didn't feel overwhelming. It felt manageable. Within a few days, I found a room above a retired mechanic's garage. Small, maybe 400 square feet, but clean, quiet, and mine. Mrs. Thompson asked me 2 questions. Do you smoke? Do you pay on time? I said no, and yes. She handed me the key. Shh! I moved in with 2 duffel bags, a second-hand mattress, and a folding chair I bought for $20. That first night, I sat on the floor eating takeout from the carton, surrounded by boxes. And silence. Eat it haze. Real silence. Not the kind that waits for an argument. Not the kind that tightens your chest. Just space. And somewhere in that quiet, I realized something I hadn't felt in a long time. I was building a life that actually belonged to me. And the strange part was, the more stable mine became, the more unstable theirs started to get. It didn't happen all at once. It started small. Missed reminders, small cracks. By day 4, my phone buzzed. My sister. Did you forget to set the car insurance alert? Mom got hit with a late fee. No hello, no concern. Just a problem. That used to be mine. Yes, sir. Day 5, my father texted. Where's the login for the utility account? I stared at the screen for a moment, then set the phone down. Not replying had become its own answer. Because for the first time, I wasn't the one absorbing everything. Iham ha iti in sisi. By day 6, Mrs. Thompson knocked on my door around 7 p.m., holding a casserole wrapped in foil. Honey, your daddy was shouting in the driveway this morning. Loud enough for 3 houses down. I didn't ask what he said. I didn't need to. Yusen asan. Men only get that loud, she said, when the audience they expected didn't clap. That stayed with me. Later that night, my sister sent a longer message. It started with, "You're unbelievable," and ended with, "Mom cried at Costco." I could almost picture it. The fluorescent lights, the wide aisles, my mother trying to hold it together, while everything around her kept moving like nothing was wrong. Except something was wrong. The system had lost its center. By day 7, Jason called after a transport shift. "I was near your old block," he said. "Your dad was arguing with a cable guy. Something about passwords." I laughed, not because it was funny, because it was predictable. Not grief, not loss, labor. That's what my absence had created. By day 8, my mother called from a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. Her voice came through shaky at first, then sharper toward the end. She said I was punishing them, that I was embarrassing the family, that the neighbors were talking, that my father wasn't himself anymore. Ki jashas. That part almost made me smile. He was exactly himself. The difference was, I wasn't there to absorb it. And by day 9, the messages changed. They stopped sounding annoyed and started sounding desperate. My phone lit up late into the night. Call after call, text after text. Then my sister sent one that stood out. "He can't sleep. Bah." I sat there staring at those 3 words, and for a second, I remembered the porch light on his face, the certainty in his voice when he told me to get out. The way he held that phone, like he already knew how the story would end. Men like him always think consequences belong to someone else. Until they don't. I didn't respond. Not to that message, not to any of them. Because something had become painfully clear. They weren't falling apart because I left. They were falling apart because for the first time, there was no one left to carry what they refused to hold themselves. And the quietest realization of all, the one that settled deepest, was this. I hadn't been the burden in that house. I had been the structure. And without me, everything they called normal was starting to collapse under its own weight. And that was the moment. It stopped feeling like loss and started to look like something else. Not revenge, the way people imagine it. No shouting, no dramatic confrontations, no long speeches about how they hurt me. Just absence. I went to work, showed up for my shifts, clocked in, did what needed to be done. I studied when I could, paid my rent on time, made my own appointments, handled my life, quietly, consistently, without asking anyone for permission or approval. One has shalmas. And back at that house, the silence I left behind wasn't peaceful. It was loud. Every missed payment, every forgotten password, Every small task that used to get handled without anyone noticing started stacking up. And for the first time, there was no one there to catch it before it fell. That's the part people don't talk about. Real revenge doesn't always look like striking back. You won must twice. Sometimes it looks like stepping out of the role they built for you and letting them feel the full weight of everything you used to carry. And intihaziam. I didn't block their numbers. I didn't need to. I let the messages come in, one after another, watching the tone shift in real time, from irritation to frustration to something that sounded a lot like panic. Inaswidisi. But I didn't respond, because every time I stayed silent, I was saying something louder than any argument. I'm not coming back. I'm not fixing this. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't measuring my worth by how much I could hold together for other people. I was measuring it by what I was finally willing to let fall apart. But... And that's when something shifted. Outside that house, too. Up until then, everything stayed inside those walls. Their version of the story, their control of the narrative. But the night he dragged my life onto the lawn and hit record, he didn't just throw me out. He made it public. At first, I didn't know how far it had spread. I was too busy rebuilding my own life to track what people were saying. But by the end of that second week, the outside world started speaking back. A message came in from an old coworker, someone whose aunt lived 2 doors down from my parents. It was casual, almost hesitant. Hey, not sure if I should say anything, but your dad showed that video at work. It's not landing the way he thought. I read that twice. Not landing. That was the polite version of what it really meant. It made him look exactly like what he was. A man who thought humiliating his daughter in public would earn him respect. Instead, it did the opposite. Neighbors had seen enough. The people across the street who weren't watching, they were watching. They heard everything. And now they were talking. Not loud, not dramatic. But steady. The kind that sticks. Did you hear what he did? That didn't look right. Something's off there. Inas. That kind of judgment doesn't fade. Mrs. Thompson mentioned it one evening while watering her tomatoes. Word gets around, she said. Especially when someone forgets. People can see them. Apparently, it reached his workplace too. No big fallout, no dramatic consequences. He didn't lose his job, but something had changed. People looked at him differently. And for a man like my father, a man built on control, on image, on being seen a certain way. It hers of worse. That kind of shift cuts deeper than any argument. Because once people see you clearly, you don't get to decide what they see anymore. And I think that's when he realized the story had slipped out of his hands. 10 days after he threw my life onto the lawn, my phone lit up again. His name. I let it ring once, twice, then answered, already hitting record. Hey, what? No hello, no hesitation. Where the hell are you? At work. Don't get smart with me. Same tone, same entitlement. Like none of it had happened. like kicking me out, was just another tactic. That hadn't worked yet. Ibu chamterisi, hamak hati. He didn't ask if I was safe, didn't ask where I was staying. He went straight into it. My mother was stressed. My sister was impossible. The neighbors were talking. Bills were getting missed. Wam yi. Every word circling back to the same truth. Imati hamgi haini. Or he. I was gone, and things weren't working without me. Yas chahasti yin onin deiman sos. Are you disappearing like this is selfish, he said. This family's already under pressure. Yay, evidence. I leaned back in the break room chair, staring at the cinder block wall, letting him talk, himself into the truth he couldn't hear. And then he said it. Son. If you don't come home and help settle this, I'll make sure everybody knows what kind of daughter you are. There it was. Not concern, not regret. Reputation. She one with a hair. I felt a small smile. Not the kind you show, the kind you feel. You mean tell people you threw your daughter's belongings onto the lawn while filming it? Silence. For a second, the line went so quiet. I thought the call had dropped. Him han knows han indi. Go ahead, Dad, I said. Tell them. Another silence. Shorter this time, sharper. You think you're tough now, he said, voice tightening. Because you've got people filling your head? No, I said. I think I'm hearing my own thoughts, for the first time. Yes, he started to raise his voice, that familiar edge creeping back. But I cut him off, and just so we're clear, I recorded this call. That did it. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was heavy, final. Then the line went dead. I sat there for a moment, phone still in my hand, listening to the quiet hum of the vending machine. My heart wasn't racing, my hands weren't shaking. I just felt steady, like something had finally locked into place. I uploaded the recording to the same folder as the first one. The night on the lawn, labeled it, filed it away. Not for revenge, for clarity. Because for the first time, I wasn't arguing with him. I wasn't explaining myself. I wasn't trying to win him over. I was documenting reality, and reality didn't need my help to stand on its own. When I walked back onto the floor, scrubbing in for the next case, everything felt sharper, cleaner. Like I had stepped fully into a version of myself. That didn't need permission to exist. I didn't know what he would do next, but I knew one thing, for certain. Whatever power he thought he still had over me, he had just lost it. And for the first time, I understood something I hadn't been able to name before. It wasn't just about leaving a house. It was about leaving a role. A few nights later, he showed up in person. I saw his truck before I heard the knock, parked crooked along the curb, engine still ticking. Then came the pounding on my door, not hesitant, not unsure. Shh. The same knock I'd heard my whole life, demanding. I opened the door with the chains still on. He looked worse than I remembered. Not broken, not sorry. Just worn down in a way that didn't reach his pride. Jaw tight, eyes red, like sleep had become optional. We need to talk, he said. We're talking now, I answered. He glanced past me, taking in the small space, the folding table, the secondhand shelves, the life I built without him. I saw the judgment rise in his face. Knees. But it didn't land the way it used to. Because I wasn't standing inside his version of me anymore. Here, Jisa. Your mother's a wreck, he said. Your sister's crying every day. This has gone on long enough. I let that sit between us. You threw me out, I said. I was angry. You filmed it. His face twitched, just slightly. Not denial, not quite acknowledgement. I didn't think... I know, I said. That's the problem. For a second, something shifted in him. Not enough to change, but enough to show the truth underneath. Emily, he said, lowering his voice like he was trying something new. I just wanted you to stand on your own 2 feet. I almost laughed. I am, I said. That's what's bothering you. In home being the Esmerns. That landed harder than anything else. Because in that moment, I saw it clearly. You how it is. Control had always worked. As long as I needed his approval. As long as I stayed inside the lines he drew. But the second I stepped outside, he had nothing left to hold on to. You're making me look like a monster, he said. There it was again. Not, you hurt me, not, I was wrong. Just image. I'm not making you look like anything, I said quietly. You did that yourself. The silence that followed wasn't uncertain. It was final. And for the first time, I understood something with absolute clarity. Family doesn't mean obligation without respect. It doesn't mean staying where you're diminished, just to keep someone else comfortable. If a relationship only works when you're small, quiet, and useful, then maybe it's not a relationship worth saving at all. And that realization stayed with me. The morning of the fundraiser. It was a Saturday, bright, clear, early spring, still a chill in the air. But the sun felt like a promise. Our hospital had a booth set up at a local park. Rows of white tents, folding tables, rescue dogs on leashes, families walking through, coffee in hand, kids tugging at their sleeves. I almost didn't go. Not because of the work. I was ready for that. But because I knew where it was. 2 miles from the house I left behind. Close enough that the same neighbors who watched my life get thrown onto the lawn might be there. And they were. I showed up in clean navy scrubs, my hospital badge clipped neatly to my chest, hair pulled back, hands steady. I checked in foster dogs, answered questions, walked families through intake forms. A little boy, maybe 6, stood frozen in front of a pit mix named Rosie, too scared to touch her. I knelt down beside him, showed him how to hold his hand out, slow, how to let her come to him. See, I said gently, you don't have to be afraid. Sorry, ye haskimandith. Funny how that works both ways. For the first hour, it was just work, focus, movement, purpose. Then I saw them. Across the field, near a cluster of picnic tables, my mother, my sister, my father, laughing too loudly, standing a little too straight, performing normal, like it was something they could still control. And then someone noticed me. A woman from across the street walked over first, her face lighting up. Emily, honey, I had no idea you worked in emergency animal care. That's wonderful. I hanis mens was. Wonderful. Iyo yam buensiendi. That word landed differently than anything I had ever heard from that neighborhood. Another neighbor followed, then another. Shanisin's questions came about my work, my training, how long I'd been doing this. Han enwern hastarshi. I answered easily, calmly, like this version of me had always existed. Hanstan. Dr. Whitmore stepped beside me, catching part of the conversation. She's one of the best techs we have, she said. Not loud, but loud enough. And just like that, the air shifted. I didn't need to look to know he heard it. See, yars hantis. But when I did, my father wasn't smiling anymore. His son, in your sighty, the same man who stood on that porch, certain of who I was. I, indeed, was now watching a field see something completely different. Not a burden, not a problem. A professional. My sister approached first. She looked smaller somehow, like the confidence she used to wear had slipped. Can we talk? She asked. You can talk, I said. She glanced back toward them, then lowered her voice. Everything's been insane. He yells all the time. Mom keeps crying. People keep asking questions. Heimers, das dehas. I didn't answer right away. Intense. I didn't think it would go this far, she said. I har den sierns. There it was. Sim chas harjid desires. Not an apology, but closer than anything I'd heard before. Iharndi, chanjidan hardi. You kicked my bag into the street, I said. Her eyes filled instantly. I know. You laughed. I know. Honey, I ihimanoas. For a moment, I believed her. I or us. Not that it erased anything, but that she finally understood it, in a way she never had before. I'm on them highs. You don't get to come to me, only when it's hard for you, I said quietly. It was already hard. You just weren't standing where I was. Ani emotions. She nodded, tears slipping down her face, then stepped back. Etik, itam in ons fafisi. My mother came next, her voice tight, controlled. Please, she whispered, glancing around. Not here. Teen, Mum. I almost smiled. Yeah, not here. Yours rare orndi. That was the luxury. They never gave me. You made it here, I said. All of it. Her eyes moved over me, the badge, the clipboard. The people greeting me by name. And something in her expression cracked. Not loud, not dramatic. Just enough to show she saw it. Then my father crossed the field. No raised voice, no performance. Just a man who didn't know which version of himself still worked. You look busy, he said. I am. Inafi. A muscles. He looked around. The dogs, the families, the people who saw me as something more than what he decided I was. And for once, he didn't try to rewrite it. People have been talking, he said. Yes, I answered. They tend to do that when they watch a man throw his daughter's life onto a lawn. He didn't argue. Because he couldn't. Not here, not like this. Not in front of people who had already made up their minds. I didn't think he started. I know, I said. And that was enough. Because standing there, in the middle of that park, surrounded by people who respected me, without knowing my history, hey, son, I realized something bigger than anything before. He didn't get to define me anymore. Not privately, not publicly. Not at all. And once that settled in, everything after that became simple. If I'm not coming back, I said. No anger, no hesitation. As there's just a fact. My mother's face tightened, like she was bracing for something softer, something she could work with. Emily, we can fix this, she said quietly. I shook my head. No, you can fix your house. But I'm not the one who's going to do it. My sister wiped her eyes, looking between us, still hoping for a different ending. So that's it? She asked. That's it, I said. At least for now. I wasn't closing the door out of spite. I wasn't trying to punish them. And maybe that's why they couldn't understand it. I just wasn't willing to step back into a role. That required me to disappear. If we talk again, I said, looking at all three of them, it won't be because you need me to make things easier. It'll be because you've learned how to treat me like I matter. No one argued. Not my father, not my mother, not even my sister. Because for the first time, there was nothing left to negotiate. I had already left. And I wasn't undoing that. Not for guilt, not for pressure, not for the version of family they wanted me to return to. Dr. Whitmore called my name from across the tent. I turned and went back to work. Without waiting for a response. Because sometimes the strongest ending isn't a dramatic goodbye. It's choosing your life and not looking back. And that was the part I carried with me long after that day ended. I used to believe family meant holding on, no matter what. That love meant staying, enduring, adjusting yourself until things felt normal again. But I see it differently now. Love doesn't ask you to disappear. It doesn't require you to shrink, to stay quiet, to keep proving your worth, just to be treated with basic respect. And if the only version of you that's accepted is the one that's exhausted, overextended, invisible, then that isn't love. That's dependence. And walking away wasn't betrayal. It was the first honest thing I had done in years. And maybe that's the question that matters most. Not whether they deserved another chance, but whether I deserved a life where I was finally allowed to exist in it. Sometimes the hardest truth is that love without respect isn't love at all. Walking away from people who diminish you isn't selfish. It's necessary. Many of us, especially later in life, are taught to endure for the sake of family. But endurance should not cost you your identity. Real strength isn't holding everything together for others. It's knowing when to step back and let go. When you stop carrying what was never yours, you make space for a life that is actually yours. Built on respect, clarity, and self-worth.